Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Dr. Mukesh Pareek, and let us start the live class. This is our fifth class, and we have been studying in the last four classes. We studied uh, the real lines from the text of Canterbury Tales, prologue to the Canterbury Tales, and now in today's class we will be talking about some of the stories written by Chaucer, and we'll also be talking about the Italian period. Those who really want to attend the class, should come, should say hello. I'm a bit late today, 2-3 minutes late. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Ramji. Vivek Shukla is present. Show your presence so that I can start the class. Swati Pareek, good morning. Jai Shri Krishna. Sonali Singh, good morning, good morning. I hope that you all have subscribed to my YouTube channel, because I have started taking theory and literary criticism on my YouTube channel in the evening at 8 o'clock. So those who are listening to me right now and those who will attend this lecture, after it finishes, I request them all that if they are not aware about my YouTube channel, then they can search on my channel. There are certain many times I have shared the link, and we have started taking special classes on the theory and literary criticism in the evening at 8 o'clock. Should I start? Okay. So today I will be talking about the Italian period. Italian period, having finished with the characters, their characteristics, their horses, their clothes, if you have been attending the class regularly, you all know that the kind of lines we studied, they actually appeared in the exam, NET and JRF. So in today's class I'll be talking about Italian period. First of all, you should write it down that Italian period means to say that it is considered by the historians of English literature that Chaucer was his work is divided into three parts: the English part, the French part, and the Italian part. In the French part, actually he translated certain writers, those I already told you in the very first lecture. And in the English period we study the Canterbury Tales. But apart from that, in the Italian period, as you all know that he went to a mission and he met Petrarch, Boccaccio and Dante there. So somewhere he came under the influence of as you all know that official language was Norman, Anglo-Norman. Exactly Norman, Anglo-Norman was spoken, but still in the universities and in the educated circle, mostly Latin was in vogue, and highly qualified people used to study Greek also. So in the Italian period, it starts from 1372 to 1385. Okay, these years. So in these works, Troilus and Cressid, that is, as you all know that Homer wrote an epic, Trojan War. Odyssey, we just, name it Odyssey or say Ulysses. This story has, been taken from there. So Troilus and Cressid are a pair of, famous lovers in English culture. So this is again, and I have already uploaded the comparison between, because as you all know that Shakespeare also wrote a play on Troilus and Cressid. So what is the difference? I have already written an article and uploaded on my blog, on my website. You can go and search there. The name of my website is www.mukeshpareek.com, and on my blog there you can find the difference between Shakespeare's Troilus and Cressid. There is a change in the spelling also. So Troilus and Cressid, in the spelling of Chaucer, Cressid's spelling is Criseyde. Okay, and then so this is again written from the point of view of both Troilus as well as Cressid. The Parliament of Fowls, another important work. Parliament of Fowls is a kind of beast fable where the writer has used the technique of dream vision And the Parliament of Fowls. Parliament exactly is a technical term. When we study for different competitive exams, we study one word substitution, so Parliament is exactly, when there is a collection of flock of birds. So we usually, like for a Parliament of owls, you will be surprised. So sometimes, it is a pun also, and it is, in a satiric manner. The parliamentarians are called, like, they are owls. So the Parliament of Fowls means here birds. Okay, so Parliament of Fowls is a work. You should read it thoroughly, because they can just ask you the title itself, in the exam. Then House of Fame. Friends, this House of Fame is a very, very interesting work, and it is influenced by Dante. You all know that Dante wrote Divine Comedy. And in that Divine Comedy, the writer has written from a very different satiric angle, that the people who are famous in this world, the people who are successful in this world, they actually, they compromise with so many things which are moral, ethical, and religious, sometimes, familial. So these kind of compromises actually are considered to be wrong in the from the spiritual point of view. So the House of Fame is a very beautiful work by Chaucer, where he is influenced by the most famous writer Dante's Divine Comedy. So that can be asked in the exam. And in this work, the writer has shown that, he falls asleep while reading something, the narrator, and then, in the dream, the goddess comes, and, he feels that, a bird has captured him, and the bird has, dropped him on a particular place which is of glass, and the writer has called it House of Fame. So you can understand the allegory. You can understand that, fame. What is fame? Fame is something which is very transient in nature. And fame also means, because fame is quite worldly, and people compromise with their ethics sometimes, to get fame. So it is written from a very philosophical angle. So you should read this, small story from examination point of view. You should be aware about, that what is the tone. As I told you, that it is a satire. So the House of Fame is again, a famous work. It falls in the category of the Italian period. The Legend of Good Women. They have already asked us a question from this. This is an unfinished work, the Legend of Good Women. And it will be quite futile an effort for some of us here, because the writer has taken the medieval and, the Christian women who presented some moral, some kind of, ideal in front of society. So the Legend of Good Women, the writer has written about, he planned about 12-13 women, but he could finish only 8 women, and I think a small portion of the 9th women also. So there can be a question regarding that also. This Legend of Good Women. This work has already been asked in the exam, and I would like to read the kind of, women writer has talked about. Cleopatra, as you all are aware about, he has written about Cleopatra. He has written about Thisbe. He has written about, Dido, the queen of Carthage. Must have heard this name. It is a drama written by Marlowe. So Dido, that queen comes in the Virgil's epic Aeneid. Yeah, I think there is some connectivity problem. So if in between, suppose I'm taking the class and the connectivity problem comes because of some problem in the weather in this area, so you can understand that, the class is finished. Suppose it happens next time. And those who have just joined me, I would like to request them to please subscribe to my YouTube channel, because we have started taking classes of literary theory and criticism at 8 o'clock in the evening. Yesterday we discussed structuralism, and there will be a series of lectures on structuralism in the evening class on my YouTube channel. And for the link of the YouTube channel, you can request me, I will send you. And now continue. I'm talking about the Legend of Good Women, and in this the writer has talked about Cleopatra, Thisbe, Dido, Hypsipyle, Medea, Lucre, Ardine. So some of, Philomel, you must have heard about Philomel, where she was the sister of a queen, and that Terence queen, that King Terence, he rapes the girl, and then she converts into a bird. and the reference of the sound made by this bird comes in the poem The Wasteland, also in the name of Jug, Jug, Jug. So Philomel is there, Phyllis is there, Hypermenstra is there. So there are overall around the references of 10 women in this work. So they can ask you this question. It's a dream vision again. Now let me talk about some of the stories. Canterbury Tales falls in this category of the English work written by this writer. And yesterday and the day before yesterday and two days before yesterday, we talked about different characters in the Canterbury Tales and their characteristics. Now today I'll be talking about different stories. So let us start with the tales, because I'll try to be very brief, while I'll be talking about the tales, and if needs be, I'll leave some of the tales in between, because my major aim is to tell you about the exact questions they can ask you. So Knight's Tale is inspired by Boccaccio's Tessida. Boccaccio was an Italian writer, okay? And this is a romance actually. Romance is a kind of story where, the word romance actually, it belongs to the kind of stories, unbelieving kind of stories which were written in the medieval period. So actually there are two kinsmen in the story, Arcite and Palamon. And actually, they fall in love with somewhere it is written that, she was the niece of the king. And they fall in love simultaneously, because they are captured, they are imprisoned, and from the window they see, and it is they fight that, I see the girl first, and the other says that I see the girl first, and then they fight. And what happens that Arcite gains his freedom, and he is banished from the Athens. The story is in Athens, and he comes back in disguise, and start to living with Emily. And then Palamon, he's there in the prison. He actually, what he does, he breaks the prison, and then they are fighting in the jungle for the girl Emily. Then the king decides that he will arrange for a kind of tournament for both the knights, and who will win in the tournament, Emily will be married to that particular person. Now the name of the king is Theseus here. And now from examination point of view, let us understand that there comes the reference of supernatural machinery in this story, because as you know that it is a romance. So Arcite prays to the god of war, Mars, okay, for the victory, and Palamon, the other knight, he prays for Venus. Venus, as you all know, is a goddess of love, and Mars is a god of war. And very interestingly, the girl Emily, she doesn't want to get married, and you will be surprised that she prays to Diana, the goddess of chastity. So that interest is developed here. Is in between, can you please discuss bilingual? My goodness, am I using tough English? Okay, इस कहानी में पैलामन एक नाइट है, आर्साइट एक नाइट है, और थीसियस जो राजा है वो उनके यहाँ पर दोनों कैद में है। और कुछ इस तरह से होता है कि वो प्रिजन की, फ्रॉम द विंडो ऑफ द प्रिजन की खिड़की से एमिली को देख लेते हैं महल में, एंड दोनों की निगाह एक साथ पड़ती है। तो देन दे फाइट दैट शी इज माइन, देन द अदर सेज शी इज माइन। तो फिर वो एक जना आर्साइट को राजा बाहर निकाल देता है, और वो भेष बदल कर वापस आ जाता है जंगल में, और जो पैलामन है वो खिड़की तोड़ करके चला जाता है, और दोनों जने जंगल में दोबारा मिलते हैं, वो लड़ रहे हैं आपस में। तो राजा कहता है कि मैं टूर्नामेंट कराता हूँ, लेट मी ऑर्गेनाइज अ टूर्नामेंट, एंड द पर्सन हु विल विन विल ऑटोमेटिकली मैरी द सिस्टर इन लॉ ऑफ थीसियस, दैट इज एमिली। तो इस कहानी में ऐसा होता है कि इसमें सुपर नेचुरल मशीनरी दिखाई है। सुपर नेचुरल मशीनरी क्या होती है? द इंटरवेंशन ऑफ द गॉड्स एंड गॉडेसेस। तो इसमें ऐसे दिखाया है कि आर्साइट, ये आपको याद रखना है, इसमें क्वेश्चंस पूछते हैं एग्जाम में। आर्साइट जो है वो मार्स, गॉड ऑफ वॉर को इन्वोक करता है, उसकी पूजा करता है। और ऑन द अदर हैंड जो पैलामन है वो वीनस इज द गॉडेस ऑफ लव, उसकी पूजा करता है। सो वी कम टू नो दैट इसमें इंटरेस्टिंग क्या है बताइए, क्योंकि एक्चुअल में लास्ट में क्या होता है कि और मैंने क्या बताया कि एमिली जो है वो शी वर्शिप्स द गॉडेस ऑफ चेस्टिटी, दैट इज डायना। तो वो ये चाहती है कि डायना, गॉडेस डायना, जैसे तुम चेस्ट रही हो, यू नो, हैव योर ब्लेसिंग्स ऑन मी एंड आई डोंट वांट टू मैरी बोथ ऑफ एनी ऑफ दीज टू पीपल। तो क्या होता है इसमें कि आरसाइट जो है वो जीत जाता है, एमर्जिस विक्टोरियस, क्योंकि उसको आशीर्वाद किसका मिला है? मार्स का। लेकिन वो घोड़े से गिर करके जख्मी हो जाता है, तो अब जख्मी के साथ तो वो मना कर देता है कि मैं शादी नहीं करूंगा, और पैलेमन हार जाता है। लेकिन क्योंकि उसने जो पूजा की होती है, ही हैड वर्शिप्ड फॉर गॉडेस ऑफ लव, वीनस, तो फिर वो एमिली उसको मिल जाती है। सो व्हाट इज द होल क्रक्स ऑफ द स्टोरी? स्टोरी सिर्फ समझ लो एग्जाम के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से, बट सपोज दे आस्क यू एनी काइंड ऑफ से रीजनिंग काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चन इन दैट, व्हेन वी शुड अंडरस्टैंड दैट दिस स्टोरी इज एंटी फेमिनिस्टिक इन नेचर। एंटी फेमिनिस्टिक इन नेचर इन द सेंस, जैसे हमारे यहाँ पे होता है कि कई बार, जैसे आपने, यू मस्ट हैव हर्ड इन द महाभारत स्टोरी, जिसमें जो भीष्म पितामह हैं वो लड़कियों को, अंबिका, अंबालिका को विदाउट देयर विश उठा के ले आते हैं, है ना। सो इसमें ऐसे दिखाया कि द गर्ल डज नॉट वांट टू मैरी, बट अल्टीमेटली यू नो द पीपल आर फाइटिंग एंड देयर इज नो से ऑफ द गर्ल इन हर मैरिज। सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट नाइट्स टेल। अच्छा, नाइट की जो टेल है ये इट इज ऑल्सो, अंदाजा लगाइए कि नाइट की पर्सनैलिटी को शो करती है। नाइट मतलब ये हमेशा दीज आर द पीपल हु आर बिजी इन वॉर्स मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स। तो आप जरा अंदाजा लगाइए कि जो लोग टेक्निकल काम करते हैं, अकेले रहते हैं, लड़कियां वहां नहीं होती हैं, तो यू नो दे कीप टेलिंग दीज काइंड ऑफ स्टोरीज। So I think from I have not read it anywhere. I'm just telling you, to make you intelligent, that in literature, this story tells us about the psychology of this night. कि उसका औरतों के लिए क्या ख्याल है, या कि how they are romanticizing the images of girls, and again the virtue is fighting over here, but ultimately इसमें the intervention of gods जो दिखाया वो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है। अब आते हैं नेक्स्ट स्टोरी पे, मिलर्स टेल। Yesterday we read about Miller. मिलर की क्या खासियत बताई थी, बताओ मैंने? That he has a thumb of gold. इसका मतलब है he is a very sharp-minded and a cheater kind of person. अब जब मिलर की टेल स्टार्ट होती है तो द होल, एक्चुअल में यहाँ पर एक प्रॉब्लम आती है। द स्टोरी इज रीटोल्ड इन द टू नोबल किंग्समैन ऑल्सो, दैट्स करेक्ट। Naveen is adding it to our lecture, but I'm not digressing. That's why I did not talk about Shakespeare here. Miller's Tale के बारे में बात करते हैं। अब इस कहानी में क्या होता है कि to give it a realist texture, चौसर ने क्या दिखाया है कि जैसे एक जना कहानी कह रहा है, इट्स नॉट लाइक इन अ सीक्वेंस। what happens, suppose we are sitting in a classroom, even on in this live lecture also, sometimes when we touch the chord of some conversation, koi kahega you have to be in English only, some students will say that you need to be bilingual। तो जब हम लोग बीच बीच में जो प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करते हैं, तो ऐसा इस कहानी में भी होता है कि एक्चुअल में होस्ट कहता है मंक को, बिकॉज दैट जो होस्ट है टैबर्ड इनका, हैरी बेले, ही इज कीपिंग इन माइंड द हायरार्की, कि भाई पहले अगर नाइट समाज में अगर ही हैज द हायर पोजीशन, तो लेट मी गिव मंक द सेकंड पोजीशन। लेकिन जैसे ही वो मंक को इनवाइट करता है, तो जो मिलर होता है उसने शराब पी रखी होती है, ही इज ड्रंक, तो वो बीच में कूद पड़ता है कि ये कैसे कहानी कहेगा, इट्स माई टर्न टू से द स्टोरी। तो फिर वो किसी तरह से बात बनती है और वो कहते हैं चलो तू सुनाओ। तो मिलर जो है, ही टेल्स द टेल ऑफ अ कारपेंटर। कारपेंटर का नाम एग्जाम में पूछा गया है, हिज नेम इज जॉन, एंड ही हैज अ वेरी ब्यूटीफुल वाइफ एलिसन। एंड अब इस कहानी में क्या है, इसको बोलते हैं, देयर इज अ पर्टिकुलर वर्ड टेबलर, TABLIOUX, टेबलुक से बना ये वर्ड। तो टेबलू क्या होता है? टेबलू होता है एक ऐसी कहानी जिसके अंदर कहीं ना कहीं सेक्सुअलिटी, सम वल्गैरिटी इज इन्वॉल्व्ड। सो एक तरफ रोमांस इज असाइंड टू द नाइट, है ना, कि नाइट जो है वो ही बिलोंग्स टू रॉयल फैमिली, रॉयल फैमिली इन द सेंस ही हैज समथिंग टू डू विद द रॉयल फैमिली, एरिस्टोक्रेटिक क्लास। तो उसने एक बड़ा सोफिस्टिकेटेड सी कहानी सुनाई, वेयर देयर आर किंग्स एंड क्वींस एंड these are characters and fighting is there, goddesses are there, but look at the story told by the मिलर जो है अनएजुकेटेड पर्सन है, उसका जो उठना बैठना है वो थोड़े से लो लेवल में के लोगों में है। तो वो जो कहानी सुनाता है, उसमें क्या कहानी सुनाता है कि एक जो एलिसन है उसको एक लड़का और प्यार करता है, एक्स्ट्रा मैरिटल अफेयर की बात है इसमें। निकोलस एक यंग स्कॉलर है एस्ट्रोलॉजी का, एंड वो भी एलिसन से प्यार करता है। तो एक दिन क्या होता है, वन डे व्हेन जॉन वाज एट होम, जॉन घर पे होता है और निकोलस क्या करता है, एलिसन को सिड्यूस करता है। तो पहले तो वो मना करती है लेकिन फिर वो मान जाती है। इन द स्टोरी व्हाट हैपन्स कि निकोलस को ऐसा लगता है, निकोलस मेड अ प्लान कि ऐसे रोज रोज कैसे मिलेंगे रात को, तो ही मेक्स अ प्लान। वो क्या करता है, उस कारपेंटर को एक झूठ बोल देता है। निकोलस लाइड जॉन दैट देयर विल बी अ फ्लड। सो ये क्वेश्चन नेट में आया हुआ है कि देयर कम्स द रेफरेंस ऑफ नोज फ्लड। नोज फ्लड का नाम आपने सुना होगा, NOAH, नो, लिख लीजिए आप लोग। नोज फ्लड एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट है क्रिश्चियनिटी में, हमारे इंडिया में भी है, जिसके अंदर एक कॉन्सेप्ट होता है कि बहुत सारे सभी जानवरों के एक एक पेयर को इकट्ठा करके नोह को कहा जाता है अपनी 5 बीवियों के साथ कि वो नाव में रहेगा, बिकॉज गॉड जो है वो ही विल ब्रिंग डूम्सडे, अ काइंड ऑफ डूम्सडे, और एवरीथिंग विल बी डिस्ट्रॉयड। तो वो जो रेफरेंस है क्रिश्चियनिटी का नोज फ्लड का, वो इस कहानी में आता है, नोज फ्लड, NOAH, नोज फ्लड। तो वो जो निकोलस है वो प्लान बनाता है और उसके हस्बैंड जॉन को कहता है कि वो फ्लड आने वाली है, तो तू 2 नाव बना ले और अपनी सीलिंग से नाव को लगा करके उसके अंदर तुम दोनों खाना पीना रख लो और तुम सो जाओ। और इन बिटवीन वो ही हैज बीन शोन एज अ फुलिश पर्सन। तो वो क्या करता है, निकोलस की बात को, ही एग्रीज विद निकोलस की बात को मान करके वो अपनी पत्नी के साथ 2 अलग अलग नावों में दोनों सो जाते हैं। जब वो व्हेन ही फॉल्स इनटू द डीप स्लीप, तो जो उसकी वाइफ है वो उतर के नीचे आ जाती है और दे मेक लव इन द रूम। अच्छा, इन बिटवीन व्हाट हैपन्स के वो जो एक और लवर है इसका, वो आता है और ही आस्क्स फॉर फेवर फ्रॉम दिस गर्ल। तो वो क्या करती है, उसको मना करती है। देन वो क्या करता है, इट्स अ वेरी ल्यूड काइंड ऑफ स्टोरी। तो फर्स्ट टाइम व्हाट शी दैट लवर सेज दैट आई एम कमिंग टू योर विंडो एंड यू जस्ट गिव मी योर चीक सो दैट आई कैन किस। सो देन द गर्ल कम्स एंड farts in his nose. तो देन उसको बहुत गुस्सा आता है। वो सोचता है कि नेक्स्ट टाइम व्हेन आई विल कम, आई विल टेक रिवेंज ऑफ दिस इंसल्ट। तो नेक्स्ट डे भी ऐसा ही होता है, that the husband is sleeping in Nicholas, and the Allison, the girl Allison, his wife Allison, that is the problem actually. Some of my students are asking me to be be in Hindi, so I'll be speaking less Hindi, and if I speak Hindi I'll be translating it into English also so that people can understand. So as I told you that this story is very famous as a tableau. Tableau is a kind of vulgar story. In this story there are characters Nicholas, Allison, John. John is the carpenter, and Nicholas he wants to make love with Allison, and he makes he lied to John and says that there will be nose flood in the coming time, and you make big boats and you should tie the boats to some pillars around your roof, and you should lie there so that whenever the flood comes you should not be swayed away and drowned. And meanwhile in the house in the night what happens that as I told you that there was another a lover of this Allison, and he comes to the window and asks for favor. And as you all know that this Allison is with Nicholas in the room, and she doesn't want to favor the other person. So what she says that come, I'm coming to window. He asks that bring your cheek. Instead of bringing cheek, she shows her butts outside and farts in that in the nose of that man lover. And then to take revenge next time when he comes next night, he has a rod, very hot rod. We call it poker in the sense like they have fire burning in the house just to keep the houses warm. So what they do, they have a poker so that they can arrange the fire coals and all. So that red hot iron rod he brings with him, and next time he again demands like bring your cheek so that I can kiss. And the same manner she brings her butt outside the window and he touches, and then no, actually what happens that this क्या कह रहे हैं, yeah, the story is so somewhat different. Please speaks less Hindi and more. I will try that. So what happens that Absalom so what happens that and second time he asked for a kiss. Nicholas showed his back, and instead of the woman, Nicholas showed his back, and Nicholas and then he touches the butts of Nicholas with hot iron, and he screams water, water. and then he screams water, water. Then the John lying in the boat, he feels that the nose flood has really come, and then he immediately unties the rope and comes down. So this is a very funny story, and in a lecture it is not very suitably, but you should write down the names. You should understand that what is tableau, what is romance. Now let us move towards the next story that is told by the Reeve. Now what happens that in this story, a miller has insulted a Reeve. Reeve is a kind of carpenter. So then the Reeve wants to take revenge, and now he wants to tell a kind of story in which he should he feels that he should insult somewhere the miller. Then he tells a story. In this story there are two students from Oxford, John and Alan. Okay, they come to this miller to get their grain ground. What happens that they are always sitting around the mill so that he cannot cheat them. But this miller is very sharp minded. What he does, he unties the horses on which the two students came. When the horses are untied, obviously the horses run away somewhere. Then the two students, their names are John and Alan, they run behind the horses. When they run behind the horses, then he cheats and takes the grain. So in this manner, somewhere and it becomes very dark in the night when they come back with the horse. So they want to live there, so because they cannot move in the night. So they both of them, they come to know that we have been cheated. So then they cuckold him. Cuckold in the sense, they make that night Alien seduces Miller's daughter and John seduces Miller's wife. It is written in the story. So again, we should be only aware about that this is also a kind of tableau, a story in which literal banter, some the people are insulting each other, some sexual references come and all. Then comes in the fourth level the story of Cook. As I'm discussing with you the stories of these characters, let us understand that the writer has written in a very systematic manner. Every character, when he or she comes, they tell the writer gives us the whole characteristics in a prologue. So overall they can ask you a question that how many prologues are there. So today I'm putting you to a task that go and study and search, and in the tomorrow's class might be I'll ask you that how many prologues are there in the Canterbury Tales. And as you all know that overall he was able to write only 22 tales, and 2 tales are unfinished, and though he planned 120 stories, so it's not a very big work, you can say, but whatever he has written somewhere has become an asset. Pooja Madan is saying that when it comes in exam we get confused, so how can memorize for a long time? I can understand, as you know that if you read, I don't consider, because I also appear in the exam and I find that I don't forget. On my tips I always remember that night I'm already telling you the detail. It is not an exam to remember, I think, because there are options all the time. I've seen in the exam that they always give that kind of some hint in the question itself. So I don't think you just check yourself by again and again putting two questions after reading the detail. I think the answer lies that we must not have read something in detail. That is the reason that we are unable to answer the questions. I beg your pardon that I might sound very harsh and very impractical, but it is the thing, because I have been teaching and I have been appearing in this exam and qualifying it. Just imagine, I have qualified it so many times, and I never complained that I'm getting stuck, because I read the things thoroughly. So देखो एक बात तो, one thing is always there, that you people are living in an age where you feel that it's bulky in stature. This is vast a course, but I think that the course is not vast. You have to select the writers. Like for last 5 days we have been studying Chaucer. I think like anybody who has read Chaucer thoroughly, the PDF already I have sent to some of the students, and some of the details I'm telling you from the same PDF. give us some motivated ideas to keep this all in mind for a long time. We forget it after some time. I'm sorry, I am delivering the lecture on the same topic, that we don't forget. It is a myth that we forget. We don't forget. And suppose you want like certain tips should be there, then I can give you a tip that at least write your own notes. Just not only read, you should write them also. It happens that because of the vastness of the course, sometimes we tend to forget things. But you can do one thing. You can after reading, you can recall it in your mind, because the things which are recalled, they tend to go in the memory for a longer time. Okay, so this is a suggestion from my side that we should how many of you have read these tales in detail, or one who has read the prologue to the Canterbury Tales twice, original Canterbury Tales prologue? Because we don't read, that is why we don't remember them. Okay, so I'm coming to the cook's tale. The cook enjoys Reeve's tale, and then because he wants to take revenge, what he does, he tells us a funny tale. And he talks about an apprentice. There is an apprentice, his name is Perkin, who drinks and dances a lot. And that's why there can be a question on this term, Perkin reveler. Revel means a person who drinks and then disturbs people when he's merrymaking. So actually this is the story of an apprentice where his name is Perkin, and after drinking wine he disturbs all the people, and Perkin decides to stay with a friend and loves drinking, gambling, and he had a wife who was a prostitute. So the moment he starts telling this tale, he's disturbed and he breaks in the 58 lines, sorry. So you should write it down that Miller's tale, right? Sorry, Cook's tale is, an incomplete tale. Then comes the Man of Law's tale. Man of Law's tale is about actually what happens, that the host Harry Bailey, he reminds all the pilgrims that we should not waste time, and Man of Law then apologizes, and then he talks. There is a long conversation. Then they talk about Ovid and John Gower. So you should write it down that there comes the reference of John Gower. This question has already appeared in the exam, that who was the contemporary of Chaucer whose reference comes in Canterbury Tales, and it is in this Man of Law's tale, some important authors list in Elizabethan age. I think you are disturbing me, people, by asking very irrelevant questions. You should pay attention to whatever I'm teaching you right now. I'm teaching you right now Tales of Chaucer. Okay, so Man of Law prologue is quite lengthy, and he talks about Ovid, he talks about John Gower, and then he talks about a Muslim Sultan's tale. So this is a tale where the reference of the kind of crusades come. There is a story of Muslim Sultan and Christianity, and in the tale, the Muslim Sultan of Syria, he converts his entire sultanate to Christianity in order to persuade the Emperor of Rome. So there can be a question regarding that, okay, that in which the conversion theme comes, because as you all know that we are talking about the times of 15th century, where these writers, they were passing through circumstances where still conversion was a theme. So mostly, जिसको हम jihad बोलते हैं, the crusade, holy wars. So Muslim, particularly from Syria and all, they used to convert, these, इनको बोलते crusades. We call them crusades. Okay. And so I don't want to read the whole story, because only the theme is important here, that in which story there comes the theme of conversion. Okay, then comes Wife of Bath's tale, which is more important. Wife of Bath's prologue and then tale is again the most interesting important part. The host asked the parson, in between, as I all told, Constance, beauty and all, I understand, but I told you that what kind of questions they can ask us. There comes the reference of conversion, so they can ask you a question regarding the conversion. So this tale, Manciple of Law's tale, is more important as per conversion is concerned, because of the problem of the time, constraints regarding time. I can't tell you the whole detail, but Wife of Bath's prologue and tale, in which she talks about her 5 husbands, And here we are, given the name of this wife of Bath, which can be a question. Wife of Bath's name is Ellison. Okay, and she tells us that she marries 5 times, and in the last marriage she married out of love and not out of money. It means we come to know that for 4 times she married for the sake of money, and her 5th husband's name is also given Jankin. And this is a story which is taken from what we call about Arthurian legends. In this story, actually, a knight rapes a nun, and then Arthur says that I will not judge in his part, and he sends this case to his wife, and the wife of Arthur, she says that she leaves that night, and she says that I'm giving you full year, you just go and come back. Then in the story, what happens that the major question which is asked by the wife of Arthur is that what loves women most. So in the story we come to know that at the end, the very ugly woman, old and ugly woman, she says to this Arthurian knight that I will tell you that what women's love. And the answer, this has already been asked as a question, that she says that women's sovereignty, that we should have power over our husbands. That is the most, we should control our husbands, and we can live our own lives. So from this angle also we can say that Chaucer was a kind of feminist, where he has created Legend of Good Women as one work he wrote, and on the total control on lover or man. Here it is written like husbands and all, and then the story ends, and then she gets converted, as we mostly see that in the romances what happens, that that ugly woman, old and ugly woman, she gets converted into a beautiful girl. And then comes the story of Friar. The Friar's tale is also, it starts with a prologue, and now Hubert, again the name is given, the friar's name is Hubert, Huberd. This has already been asked as a question in the exam, and you all know that friar is a very licentious, sexual, lusty kind of person, and he seduces young girls. And yesterday I told you that he has knives in his hood, and knives is the sexual symbol, male sexual symbol. And then he tells his story, and his story is based on a summoner actually, and that he makes fun of a summoner. So Friar tells the story of a summoner in which he makes fun of a summoner. Summoner is again an ecclesiastical character, a character from the church. Okay, and you all know that these all are corrupt people. So one is making fun of the other in the story. So he says in the story that the summoner extorts money from very poor people also. He tries to serve a summons on a yeoman who is actually a devil. Here comes the question, that there is a yeoman, he tries to serve a summon to a yeoman. He goes to a yeoman and who is actually a devil, so devil in disguise. So there comes a question that in which tale there comes the reference of a devil. Okay, so after comparing notes on their treachery and extortion, the devil vanishes. But when summoner tries to prosecute an old wealthy widow unfairly, she cries out that the summoner should be taken to hell, and directly he goes to hell. It is shown that the devil follows the women's instruction and lays the summoner to hell. So in this short story, what hint I can furnish here, that they can ask you a question that in which story there comes the reference of devil directly. Okay, so that can be now because the friar has made fun of summoner, so then summoner tells a story, and in which obviously he'll be making fun of a friar. So summoner is an officer of the church who calls people for a church trial. So he's an ugly as his profession, and he frightens children with his red complexion. Yesterday I told you, because he has pimples and boils, and his skin is infected. So this is a kind of a metaphor that the inward bad qualities are shown by the outward physical appearance. So first he tells the company that there is a little difference between friars and friends. When an angel took a friar down to hell to show him the torments there, the friar asked why there were no friars in hell. The angel then pulled up Satan's tail, and 20,000 friars came out of his ass. So the tale begins. So you can understand that, in this friars story, there comes, the reference of the pulling of the tail of the Satan. And the friar shamelessly exploits the couple's misfortunes to extract money from them. So Thomas tells friar that he is working on something that he will bequeath to friar. The friar reaches for his bequest, and Thomas so there comes, a reference of these kind of stories where these ecclesiastical characters, these people from church, are made fun of for their love for money, their greed, their over sexuality and all. And there comes a quote: Sumner would lend his concubine, lend his mistress to anyone for a quest of wine. So yesterday, as I told you, so accordingly the story is told. Then there comes the story of a tale of clerk. Yesterday I told you that, clerk is a well-read person, but he's emaciated, he's very weak, thin. So I think last night they asked a question regarding clerk's tale. Because as you know that, clerk agrees to tell a tale by the Italian poet Petrarch. So there comes the direct reference of Petrarch in Clerk's Tale. And as I told you that he tells us a story of Gressild. Gressild is a hard-working peasant who marries into the aristocracy. Her husband tests her fortune. Actually, this is again a story in which a husband marries a girl, and then every time she gives birth, she takes the child and kills her own children. And she says that, you should not say anything. And she shows her loyalty to her husband, and she never asks a question. So he punishes her one final time by forcing her to prepare for his wedding to a new wife. And actually the wife is, turns out to be her own, his own daughter, begot by that girl. So this is a story in which, you can understand that, again, an anti-feministic kind of story, I would term it. That what Rohit is writing, Francis Petrarch, yeah, full name is telling us, I think, showing that he also knows. That's great, congratulations. Then Merchant's prologue and tale comes. As you all know that Merchant, as yesterday I told you, was a very shrewd person, an intelligent person, and he belongs to a middle class. So the story he tells us about, an old knight named January and married May. So there comes, a symbolic story. January is a symbol of, this has already been asked as a question. January here is a metaphor for, a person who is unable to make love. And he marries a girl, her name is May, a beautiful young woman. She is less impressed by his enthusiastic sexual efforts. And when this January is blind actually. So what does happen in the story, that this May, she makes love, on the tree, and when the tree shakes, then the husband asks that what is happening. Then she makes lies and all, and they make love on a pear tree, P-E-A-R. Pear is a fruit, where she has sex with Demine. There comes the third character, Demine. Pluto, the king of fairies, restored January's sight. Now what happens again? So there can be a question that in how many stories there comes the interference of gods. As I told earlier that in the Knight's Tale, there comes the interference of God, Mars and Venus and Dinah. In this story, Pluto, the Pluto is the king of hell. So he gives automatically sight to the, matlab is story mein kya hota hai, the January, the character January becomes, he can see at the end of the story, and he sees that, my wife is cuckolding me, my wife is making love with another person, she's, deceiving me. And she accuses him that he must be still blind. She says that no, you are still blind. You are whatever you are looking is not correct. And the host prays to God to keep him from marrying a wife like that Merchant. So there can be, now you can understand like what kind of satire Chaucer wants to present in front of us. That in Carpenter's story, Carpenter's marriage also, we see in Wife of Bath's marriage also, we see that, in the medieval times, I think there were, the matches were fixed, which were unequal. So I think socially and sexually also, from age point of view, there were unequal marriages were there. There comes the next story of Squire. Squire, as I told you in the second class, that Squire is again a very licentious person, very young. He can write poetry, he can sing. The host calls upon the Squire to say something about his favorite subject, and as you all know that his favorite subject is love, and Squire willingly, agrees and starts telling the story. King Cambiscan of Mongol Empire. So there comes the story from this Squire about Mongol Empire, and visited by a knight on his birthday bearing gifts from the king of Arabia and India. So I have already given the PDF to the students, and where I have already mentioned that they can ask you a question that in which story there comes the reference of India. So in this story of Squire, there comes the reference of king of Arabia and India. So in this story, I think I should not read the whole story. There comes this reference of all medieval references are there. So this story is not very interesting. Squire, they can ask you a question regarding what kind of story he tells. Actually, the Squire's tale is either unfinished because it is not a complete story. So there is no need of telling the whole story. Then comes the Franklin's prologue and tale. Franklin says that his tale is familiar Breton lay. Lay means a kind of song, a folk ballad of ancient Brittany. So you should write it down that where comes the reference of the ballad. Ballad, as you all know, a kind of folk tale where these local people, when they enjoy and they keep telling the kind of stories. So Franklin is a large and wealthy landowner, as I told you yesterday, enjoys fine living. And there comes the story that a heroine awaits the return of her husband, Arviragus, who has gone to England to win honor in feats of arms. This is very important story from what I've considered, because this has never been asked in an exam, because there comes the direct reference of England and the kind of particular kind of rocks. She worries that ship bringing her husband home will wreck itself on a coastal rock, and she promises Aurelius. Actually, Aurelius is the person who keeps because her husband is out for a longer time, so he says that why don't you marry me? And then she keeps putting off his advances. The young man who fell in love with her, that she will give her body to him if he clears the rocks from the coast. Then she puts him to a task. She says that the coastal rocks, if he finishes, then she will be able to marry. Aurelius hires a student learned a magic to create the illusion that the rocks have disappeared, and the husband Arviragus returns home and tells his wife that she must keep her promise to Aurelius. So then the husband comes automatically, and because the rocks are not there, and he says that if you have promised that man to marry, why don't you? Brittany's rock we call them. Why don't you marry? Then husband, so impressed by this honorable husband, then she generously absolves that I just leave her from my promise, and she should not marry me now. So that way again a kind of love triangle is there, and this story tries to bring to us that gentlemanly quality, because it is told by Franklin, and you all know that this Franklin was a gentleman. So I'm speaking again and again about the characters there, where in general prologue we come to know about simple characteristics, but here we come to know about through their tales about their true nature. Okay, so then comes the physician's prologue and tale. So physician's tale I would like to talk about in the next class, because what I feel that you should work upon these tales today, and I will finish within half an hour tomorrow's lecture, and then I'll be talking about all the ages, all the literary periods and all, because why I have decided directly not coming to Spencer and digressing and talking about ages and all, because yesterday my daughter was asking me some questions which she is preparing for for competitive exams. And I found that if I give a particular lecture on the different ages, for example, how many different writers are in the Romantic age, what are the major writers in the pre-Romantic age, why we call Augustan age, what are the basic features of metaphysical poetry and all. So what I'm saying that till 20th century, tomorrow I'll be, after finishing the rest of the tales, because there is a problem of some connectivity in today. So what I'll be doing, I'll be finishing this lecture, till here, and tomorrow I'm already giving you a task that you explain very well in simple English, also understand very well, but bilingual. It doesn't matter. I have also, considered your request. This was very good lecture, sir. Thank you, Rohit ji. And so be aware that from tomorrow for 2 days continuously I'll be talking about ages. I'll be talking about the qualities of ages, because from there also you can get some questions in your exam. And then I'll be talking about major works of the major writers also, so that you can feel that a ground is prepared. And then tales, I have already uploaded the tales of PDF of the tales to the Telegram channel. I have already uploaded. If I have not uploaded, you can request me. I again request those people who are continuously watching us that in the evening I have started lectures on literary theory and criticism. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can come there and you can listen to me live. And I'll be trying to be very brief in the coming lectures, so that you can be benefited regarding objective questions. History of English literature I'll touch in the coming 2 classes. I'll be talking about all the major ages and so that you people can be benefited out of that. That's it for today. Thank you very much. There is some connectivity problem actually. Otherwise, I could have given you this lecture for 1 more hour. Thank you very much.